Hey y'all, it's Santana, aka Tana's Book Diary, and I'm back with another video. Based off the title of today's video, I will be giving you all a book annotation tour and just a little bit about how I annotate and what I annotate with. I chose these four today to discuss because they're in different genres, talk about different things. So I will not go in depth on every single tab because each book has 1,000,001 tabs, but I will just go through how they look and how I feel about each one. So the first book I want to talk about is Perfect Victims and the Politics of a Pill by Mohammed El-Kurd. I just recently read this in October. It's just talking about what's going on in Palestine and how a lot of people will come up with all the reasons why they don't feel bad about what's going on in Palestine and why they don't think it's a genocide and they think it's a war or conflict, when in actuality is simply genocide. It is simply the killing of people who didn't deserve to die. And so he's just like, one of the questions in the back is literally, why must Palestinians prove their humanity? And what are the implications of such an infuriatingly impossible task? So this book was very timely. It came out this year. I got it from Black Garnet Books in Minnesota this summer. And instantly it was a read that got me and held me for the time I read it. So I had a couple moments where I highlighted or tabbed it. So I just want to go through. The first section I highlighted was actually like in page 8, and it was in the section that says, "And the vultures in our midst will tour museums glorifying, romanticizing what they once condemned, what they did not deem to defend our resistance, mystifying it, depoliticizing it, commercializing it. The vultures will make sculptures out of our flesh. And we die, snipers here, warplanes there, expulsions, exiles, erasure, genocide, infanticide, humiliation, heartache, bereavement, imprisonment, theft, thirst, torture, famine, poverty, isolation, defeatism, blackmail, sacrifice, heroism, altruistic suicide, you name it. Our people decompose in the courtyards of hospitals like their grandparents who decayed on the Tantora beach." So this is just talking about how a lot of people are also passive in this genocide, and how a lot of public figures, politicians, news correspondents, journalists will try their best to see both sides of it, to see Israel's side, to see Palestine's side, when in actuality there are no sides. It's just strictly Israel is in the wrong and what they're doing is inhumane, period. So that was a standout line. Another one I want to share kind of starts on page 14 into 15. It says, "The sniper here, the removed figure with the authority to erase our existence without ever having to engage it, endures in both a literal sense on our hilltops and rooftops and a metaphorical sense in governments and in newsrooms. In this reality, the sniper's hands are clean of blood." Everyone has a part to play in the killing of Palestinians. It's not just the actual people who are actually doing the killing, but those who don't say anything, those who are complicit in it, those who see it and say they deserve it. So again, everyone has a part to play in it. It's just, in this sense, you don't have any blood on your hands, but you do. It's on page 117. So it's talking about the burning of a tent in Rafah that happened, and the reaction to it kind of took away from the moment itself, the loss of lives. As the screaming of the eyewitnesses grew louder, many of us debated what happened and worked hard to debunk Israeli claims. This distraction has always been the goal. And then I'll skip down. And unfortunately, many of us took the bait and began to argue that shoelaces don't carve geometric signs onto skin, as if that is not already ridiculously obvious, as if the act of a settler policeman stomping on the face of a Palestinian is not itself outrageous. But the point is to confuse. The conversation shifted from being about the brutalized Palestinian young man to something completely irrelevant. And so just again, kind of derailing the situation, forcing people into these weird tangents in conversations that take away from the actual moment. And Muhammad refers quite a bit to the Black Lives Matter movement and how we see even in those protests, we get so wrapped up in the small things about the situation and not just the simple fact that a life was taken for no reason. We want to debunk, why did this person do this? And they were here at this time. Why were they there at this time? Why were they selling this? And oh, their past is that. And we kind of miss the mark and the point, and it takes away from the moment. So I highly, highly, highly recommend Perfect Victims and The Politics of Appeal, because what is with our obsession of victims being perfect and fitting the perfect cookie cutter shape that we want them to be versus understanding that, you know, people have complexities. This is some of my annotations that I had in this book. Usually I'll underline sections, and you'll see in the up close shots, usually I underline, but in this one I just kind of put it in sections that really stood out because it would be so much for me to underline because there were so many standout points and paragraphs that were being made in this one. My second book is a romance, a contemporary romance written by Kennedy Ryan, Before I Let Go. The first book in the Skyland series, the superior one. This is my favorite one out of the series. It's about Josiah and Yasmin. They were once married and then divorced. They own a business and they have 2 children together. We start off with them already being separated and divorced and having other partners and moving on, but we see how they navigate co-parenting as well as owning a business together, and how that starts to change when another person, Vashti, if I'm correct, is her name, is with Josiah, and how him having a new girlfriend, the dynamics are weird. It's crazy. And then we also see friendships, but we also see the rekindling of their romance and them getting back together at the end. As you can see, I have so many tabs. It's crazy. As a child of divorce, I ate this up, not because I wanted my parents to get back together, but because of knowing what it's like to be the child in that situation, and feeling the way their children felt in this book, but also seeing an interesting perspective of what it's like to divorce someone that you truly do love and care about, but in the moment, it's just not working out. It was definitely nice to kind of step into the other side of things. I've talked to my mom about it plenty, but it's interesting to see it in a contemporary romance. You don't often see that. Even with Second Chance, I feel like this was so well done. And it just felt very real. And some highlight moments, there's a lot. And this one I did right. And this was when I was in my era of using the sticky notes. I kind of want to do some funny ones and some like serious ones, because I know I cried reading this. But this is on page 27. It's kind of the introduction of Vashti, if I'm correct. But it says, I've never heard Vashti laugh like this before. It lights up her face and an inner glow that spills into her eyes and over her cheeks. She wears a lovely dress of the color of buttercups that discreetly outlines her slim feminine shape. Her hand rests on Josiah's knee, casually at ease, like she's touched him that way 100 times. Oh my God, she probably has. And I had underlined it saying, sis, don't spiral. And I love reading and being able to like write my little emotions because I feel like I'm there with the character. And to continue, it says, they probably shared these simple, intimate touches many times in secret, or at least without me knowing. I would not want Josiah for myself anymore, but I'm not blind to miss when someone else does. And the simmering affection shining from Vashti's eyes tells me she wants my husband. And I said, yeah, she probably does. And sis, you still want him too, because you called him your man, not your ex. So I'm clearly that friend that's like keeping it real with you. But yeah, that's a moment where I was like, ooh, the tea is hot. So this one is on page 59. This is a moment between Deja and, who is it? Deja, Kasim, Yasmin. So like all of them, honestly, I think it's just like a parent moment with their kids. And so it says, Dad, why are you staring at me? Her grin crooks in the exact way Yasmin does when she's in a good mood. And I had underlined it and said, such a mom moment, because my mom will look at my sister and I with just like stars in her eyes when she sees us. And it's specific moments. Like I know she loves us and she says that all the time, but there's specific moments where I catch her like literally just looking at both of us, almost as if she's like in awe of us and like in awe of seeing her children in full human adult form, and not just children that she once was raising. And so I totally saw this as a mom moment, so I had to say it. And then to continue, it says, you look more like your mom every day, I tell her with a slow smile. She scowls, rolling her eyes and marching down the steps. Hopefully I'll grow out of it. Was Yasmin being sensitive? Because that was harsh. And I had underlined it and I said, this made me teary-eyed. Because, okay, so this is from the perspective of Josiah, and he's with Kasim and Deja. So he's having that moment with her. And I got sad a little bit because I understood Deja's feelings of sometimes, you know, like being compared to your parents, sometimes it's like a lot emotionally. And I know because both her parents are separated, it's very different than what it once was. So Deja's kind of in that phase where she's like, you know, you left Dad, like, you know, we could have been a family, blah, blah, blah. Not really realizing like her mom's going through so many mental health challenges. They had lost a child. So it kind of just is a lot that I know they did not involve Deja in, but it kind of is like, I kind of wish they did also kind of open it up so she's not completely out of the loop and saying things out of pocket. But yeah, it kind of made me sad. Like this book, I'm telling you, made me cry. Okay, y'all are probably going to be like, ooh, this is hardcore. This is on page 335, and I feel like I might read this and change my mind. But anyways, this is like a moment between Deja and Josiah after she heard something her mom said out of context. So it says, she doesn't deserve you. It's all her fault. Everything is her fault. A gasp from the kitchen door draws our attention. Yasmin stands there, devastation all over her face. I said, and I admit Deja is a child, so I shouldn't be so harsh. But I said, Deja is an actual menace. A menace to society. I understand her frustration, and I can understand she doesn't want to witness her parents potentially splitting up again, but she doesn't have to be rude. She doesn't know the facts. And I think this was another one of those moments where I like busted out crying, like, because I don't know, I just felt very defensive of Yasmin. And again, I understand her children don't really know what's going on, and they're human, so they have feelings about the situation as well. But I was just very in my feelings and protective of Yasmin. And even when it came to her kids, mainly Deja, I just felt like, how could you say that to your mother, about your mother, to your father? Like, how could you say that and not feel like, I don't know. And I get it. She didn't know the whole story. She does not know her mom's mental health situation and everything that built up to that. But I just was like, girl, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. So yeah, I was a little like, Deja, you better watch yourself, okay? You better watch yourself. Anyway, that was before I let go. My third book is a fantasy that I will forever recommend, Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I have so much to say about this one. I read this twice, so I got to go through. I tabbed it the first time, and then the second time I tabbed some more. So I'm excited to go back through it. And I actually have a video on my channel where I did the rereading vlog. So if you want to check that out, definitely watch that video. Okay, this is going to be so confusing out of context if you haven't read the book. But a standout line is 163. I highlighted, these gardens are abundant with root energy. Are you not a wild crafter like your mother? And this goes into page 164 on chapter 19, where it says, shock, fear, hope, emotions, war in my belly. What's a wild crafter? For the first time, Patricia looks rattled. I highlighted that specific moment because we find out a little more about Bree's mother. For context and, possible spoilers, Bree goes to college and UNC Chapel Hill, if I'm correct. She goes there because that's her mother's alma mater. Her mother did pass away about a year before she goes off to early college. She doesn't know anything about her mom's history at UNC Chapel Hill, minus the fact that she went there. So when she gets there, she learns about the order. She sees ether for the first time, or magic. And so she gets wrapped into this whole thing with Nick. He is a part of the order, but he separated himself. But he's back because Bree is now his page. And so she meets Patricia, who is a therapist on campus, but also knew Bree's mom. And so as they're talking about her mother, what she's been witnessing, and about Root, she finds out that her mom is a wild crafter. So that is a specific, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but a particular branch of magic. And so she was a wild crafter. So she did not know her mom had Root, could control Root, had any magic, any attachments to that. So that was a standout line for me to highlight. I want to also share the line on 168, which is the same chapter, which says, her people, our people, we are the descendants of those who developed the craft, and we do not actually call the invisible energy of the world ether, we call it Root. And I felt like that was a very distinctive thing that was said. It differentiates ether to Root, and it differentiates Bree to all of the other members of the order. Another standout line is between Nick and Bree on page 175. It says, when I turn to say as much, I find myself engulfed in his arms, his fresh laundry and cedar scent folding around me in a warm cloud. His hands are so large they span the whole of my spine. Heat from his palms radiates out from where he clutches me. Face tucked into my neck, he mutters, that thing was going to kill you right in front of me. All I could think was that it was my fault for bringing you in. Skip ahead a little bit. I underline, funny story, I say, trying to lighten the mood. I've been blaming myself for bringing you in. And when he laughs, the muscles in his back flex under my fingers. Yeah, well, I said it first. And so this is a standout scene because I really like Nick and Bree's dynamic. I love their little banter and their small moments they have in between all of the chaos. And that Nick really rejoined the order simply because of Bree, her power. Again, another out of context moment, but I'm going to read the entire section plus what I underlined. This is on page 470 when we find Sel's mom, who had been in hiding, and we find out about her relationship with Bree's mom. So black hair like a raven, black brows, face too beautiful to be real, features both young and old, two golden eyes like Sel's, filled deep with sorrow, not like Sel's, they are Sel's. Sel's mother's lower lip trembles. She speaks through the pain. You won't remember this, but I want you to know that she was my friend. So this is 470. And so we find out that Sel's mom actually was there when Bree's mom died, if I'm correct. That was my notes from Legendborn. But my last book I want to share is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. We follow Roman Carruthers, whose family owns a crematory in Southern Virginia. And his father ends up in a hit and run accident and is in the hospital. And it's not looking up for him. So Roman returns home from Atlanta. He's a very successful businessman, very good with numbers. He's the guy to call when you need money. And so he returns home to his sister Nevaeh and his younger brother Dante. And he finds out that his brother Dante is in a world of trouble, and maybe the reason why their father is in the hospital in the first place. So this was one of the first books I actually put an annotation key. I usually just get tabs and annotate however I want, highlight however I want, but this This specific book, I wanted to do something different, so I did red for crazy moments and burgundy for interesting family dynamics. I'm a sucker for a good family dynamic in books, and so this one had a lot of moments that I had to highlight, and not just between Roman, Nevaeh, and Dante, but also for the antagonist in the book, which was actually Torrent and Tranquil, brothers as well. My first one that I want to highlight is page 54. Again, spoilers ahead. A crazy moment where things go sideways for Roman, and he realizes talking and being smooth with your words is not going to fly with Torrent and Tranquil. So it says here, "What are you doing?" Roman moaned. "Rome, help me," Dante cried. Roman started to rise, but felt the barrel of Tranquil's gun against the back of his head. So Roman stayed there on his knees, a penitent to a slumbering god. There will be no divine intervention for either of them. The terror in his little brother's cries hurt him more than his ruined teeth. He pitched forward and vomited as he watched Torrent cut off Dante's pinky finger with the garden shears and then crushed it under his heel. I said, "OMG, ... These folks are crazy." Mind you, this is page 54. We're kicking it already into high gear, and this sets the tone, if nothing else, of how this story is going to continue. This was when, they initially thought we can talk out the situation, but from here on, they realize who they're messing with. My next one for this book is on page 67. This book kind of does a lot of a couple back and forths from past to present, because Roman, their mother died, and so it kind of was some back and forth. But on page 67 it says, I underlined, "It took up so much space in their lives, it felt like there were times it left little room for them to be parents." Them in context of his parents owning the crematory. Skip down. I'll read a little bit of before. It says, "Roman Carruthers, that's you?" A ragged voice from the shadows said. Roman watched as Leslie Moore, the owner of Save You More, came shuffling to the counter with a walker. His dark skin appeared almost blue under the overhead lights. "Yes, sir. How are you?" Roman asked. Leslie grinned, showing 2 rows of yellow teeth. "They never did find your mama, did they? Bet your daddy killed her and spread her ashes in the river," Leslie said before turning around and shuffling back to the darkness behind the counter. And I underlined it, and then I said, I wonder what really happened. And in this book, we did find out what happened, and it was not anything I expected. But for someone to say that, kind of just like, yeah, your dad killed your mom, sounds like one of those old legends that go around small towns. On page 141, it says, "It was him or us. I choose us. I'll always choose us," Roman whispered. "You saying that doesn't make it any better, Rome. We kill people, Rome. That kind of thing comes back to you," Dante whispered. "You're afraid of karma?" "Because I'm not going to let anyone put their hands on us again. If I gotta suffer karma for that, so be it," Roman said. "It's not karma I'm afraid of. It's getting what I deserve," Dante said. "Isn't that the same thing?" Roman asked. "Karma is what comes back to you for what you've done. Getting what you deserve is just what finds you eventually," Dante said. "That doesn't happen to everyone, but we are going to make sure it happens to Torrent and Tranquil. I promise you that," Roman said. "Don't do that," Dante said. He took his father's hand and entwined his fingers in the old man's. "Do what?" "Make a promise we both know you can't keep," Dante said. And I thought this was an interesting family dynamic, because Roman, as an older sibling, is like, I'll do anything to protect my siblings. I'll go to the ends of the earth for them, even if it means I'll have bad karma, bad juju, whatever the case, I'm gonna do it. And Dante is just like, but are you really gonna do it? Are you really gonna keep that promise? Are you really gonna protect us like you say you are? And I think that Dante was the classic younger brother, or younger sibling in this book, where he's kind of just like, are you really going to do it? And I really connect with Roman in the sense of not all the craziness he did, but just kind of being super overprotective and willing to go to the ends of the earth for your sibling, because you love them and care about them so much. So that was an interesting family dynamic. And I just want to do one more. I put it as crazy because it was funny, but it was also just so different from the characters, how they were introduced and just kind of going throughout the book, which was Torrent and Tranquil. So we're at the club with them and we're in the club and we're kind of seeing how they are, like kind of seen as this like tough brute to get into. They're kind of in this VIP section, I'm assuming. And so the part I highlighted was he, Roman, watched as Torrent and Tranquil and their crew, including Yellow Boy, the Bang Bang Twins, Tank, and D-Train, came down the stairs doing a synchronized dance with Tranquil in the middle. They were wiping off their shoulders as they stepped to the right, then the left, in time to the beat of the song. And I said, not they got a little 8 count, LOL. And I just thought that was so funny, and honestly why I need this to be a movie, because it's moments like that where Torrent and Tranquil come up as so monstrous and inhumane, and then they have this little moment and you're kind of just like, that's funny. But you're like, but they're scary, but that's funny. And so yeah, I think it's so hilarious. That part was so funny to me. Like, it was killing me. Like, I was literally imagining these grown gangster men doing a little 8 count to No Hands by Waka Flocka, because that was a song that was referenced. And I'm just like, OMG, y'all dance too. But anyway, that is all of the books I wanted to highlight. I have so many more. So if you guys like this video, please let me know in the comments so I can definitely film another one. I don't want this to be too long, but I just want to show you all a couple of the things I use to annotate. So I use tabs like these. This is not all the colors I have, but just the stack that was sitting next to me. I use regular pens. I'm not like super into the fancy pens. So yeah, like a no bleed pen would be what I usually gravitate to. I don't really do highlighters often. But yeah, the tabs, pens. I used to do the clear sticky notes so I could write and not worry about getting it on the book. But at this point, I really don't care, and I actually like writing in the book. That's literally my tools. I just started doing the annotation key, and I really only do that for some books. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have the energy to think of sections or specific moments, but I just want to highlight what I think stands out or whatever the case. So yeah, again, thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you guys so much for 238 subscribers. I am so appreciative, and I love that I'm growing on here and growing like a good community, and I hope to continue to grow. But yeah, I really appreciate you all watching and liking and commenting on my videos. I love the conversations that we have in the comment section. It's so much fun. And yeah, thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next video.